In the thin crystalline light of the Bolivian Altiplano, the town of Macha is profoundly still. Long, sharp shadows stretch from the adobe huts, and the air itself feels ancient, so thin that each breath is a conscious effort. It is a silence that seems to hold the weight of centuries, a quiet that feels less like peace and more like anticipation. This unsettling calm precedes a ritual that has pulsed through these highlands for over 200 years. Before the first drumbeat, before the first chant, there is only this immense quiet, a shared, unspoken understanding that the very ground is waiting. The earth here is a witness, and soon it will be an altar. Then, on the crests of the distant hills, figures begin to appear. They are not individuals arriving alone, but entire communities, known as Ilus, who have walked for hours, some for days, to be here. They descend into the valley not in a rush, but with a steady, determined pace that has its own ancient rhythm. Slowly, these separate streams of people merge into a single, flowing river of humanity. It is a pilgrimage, a hypnotic procession where the dust kicked up by thousands of feet becomes a haze that softens the harsh morning light. Each step is a testament to tradition, a reinforcement of bonds that tie families and villages together across this rugged landscape. As they draw closer, the language of their attire becomes clear. The men wear hard leather helmets called monteras, styled strangely like those of the Spanish conquistadors but reclaimed and transformed. They are adorned with vibrant feathers and shimmering mirrors, turning a symbol of a past conquest into a dazzling expression of indigenous pride and defiance. The women are a cascade of color. They wear layers of brightly colored skirts or poleras that bloom with each movement. On their backs are intricately woven shawls, liklas, where every pattern and every thread tells a story of their lineage, their village, and their place within the cosmos. This is not mere costume. It is a visual declaration of identity, a uniform that signifies allegiance not to a nation, but to one's own people, one's own patch of earth. In this gathering, clothing is a map of the social landscape, a language of belonging understood without a single word being spoken. And yet, a seemingly contradictory world springs up amidst this gathering of warriors. Stalls are being erected, and the air begins to fill with the smell of cooking potatoes and grains. The Tinku is not only a ritual, it is also one of the region's most important market days, a time for commerce to flourish. The sounds of quiet anticipation begin to mix with the hum of barter and trade. Here, the sacred and the profane are not separate. A transaction for wool or salt can happen just steps away from where a spiritual debt will be paid. Life's necessities are woven directly into the fabric of the festival. The ritual itself begins not with fists, but with music and movement. Men and women form circles, the rueda, and begin a powerful, stomping dance. The ground trembles under their feet. The high, shrill sound of small guitars, charangos, cuts through the air, their chords strummed with an increasing, almost frantic fervor as the singing becomes a unified, challenging chant. The dance begins, not with music, but with the rhythmic stomping of feet on the hard-packed earth. Men from the two communities circle each other, their movements a language of challenge and respect. It is a slow, deliberate procession, a winding up of a spring that has held its tension for an entire year. One man breaks from the circle, his gaze fixed on another. There are no words, only a subtle nod of the head, an invitation. The other man steps forward to meet him. The crowd instinctively shifts, creating a living arena under the vast, silent sky of the Andes. But to only watch the men is to miss half the story. The women are the ritual's true anchors, their voices rising in powerful, unified chants that echo across the plain. They dance with a fierce, grounding energy, their brightly colored skirts swirling like mountain wildflowers in the wind. In their hands, they hold slings, but not as weapons. They crack them in the air, a sharp, percussive sound that cuts through the tension, setting the rhythm for the entire ceremony. They form protective circles, a boundary of sound and spirit, guarding the space where disputes will be settled. Then, the fight begins. It is stark and unglamorous. A fist, its knuckles wrapped tightly in woven cloth, makes a dull, heavy thud against a helmet made of hardened leather. There are only the grunts of exertion, the sound of men pushing past their limits in the thin mountain air. There is the desperate scuffle of feet on dry earth, a fight for balance as much as dominance. One man stumbles, but is not struck while down. This is not a brawl, but something older, governed by unwritten rules. It is a visceral, physical negotiation. And then, just as suddenly as it began, it is over. The two men, faces smeared with dust and a trickle of blood, separate. But instead of turning away in anger or triumph, one slings an arm over the other's shoulder. A leather skin filled with chicha, a cloudy, fermented corn beer, is passed to them. They drink from the same vessel, the bitterness of the brew mixing with the metallic taste of their struggle. It is an offering and an acceptance. A quiet, gruff laugh is exchanged between them. The intense focus of combat dissolves into a moment of shared relief. It becomes clear that the opponent was never the enemy, but a partner in a necessary act. This is the profound, unexpected truth of the Takanakui festival. The conflict is not the purpose, it is the pathway. Through this shared ritual of struggle, grievances are aired, tensions are released, and the community is brought back into balance, ready to face another year together. For over 200 years, in these high plateaus, largely untouched by formal state governance, Tinku has served as a kind of supreme court. It is a system of justice born from the land itself, a necessary annual ritual for communities that must, in the end, rely on one another to survive the harsh environment. All the tensions that build up over a year are brought here to be settled. Land disputes, arguments over scarce water rights, personal grievances that have festered in the quiet of a long winter, none of it is left to poison the well of community life. Instead, it is given this sanctioned, physical outlet. The grievances are aired not in words alone, but through a visceral confrontation that is understood by all. This is not chaos. It is a profound social mechanism. It is a raw, unwritten form of justice where balance is restored not by a distant authority, but by a ritual that purges resentment. It is a system designed to clear the air, ensuring another year of cooperation can begin on clean ground. In a world that often atomizes us, the profound need for belonging, for a tribe, remains a powerful human truth. This visceral display is an extreme but deeply honest expression of that collective identity. It's a reminder that we are part of something larger than ourselves. One does not fight as an individual, as Juan or Maria. One fights as a man from Macha or a woman from Pocoata. The blows exchanged are not just personal, they are a defense of community honor, a reinforcement of the invisible bonds that tie everyone together. A tourist, positioned at a safe distance, captures the scene with a powerful zoom lens. Their face shows a mixture of horror and fascination, a struggle to comprehend the scene beyond its most basic, violent elements. To the outside world, this is often sensationalized as primitive savagery, a brutal relic from another time. But to have witnessed the full context, the pilgrimage, the shared purpose, the eventual communion, is to understand that the fighting is merely one part of a complex system of social cohesion. As dusk falls, the biting cold returns to the high plateau. The fighting is over. The air, once charged with adrenaline, is now thick with the smoke from communal cooking fires carrying the scent of potatoes and stew. Families and former foes now sit together, sharing these simple meals. And in the firelight, you see a teenager in a traditional woven poncho. He is also wearing a pair of modern sneakers, and he pulls out a smartphone, its blue light a stark contrast in the fading day. He scrolls through a world impossibly far from this one, and you are left to wonder how long these two realities can coexist. The dust settles, not just on the field, but within the hearts of the people who stand there. A deep quiet follows the storm, a shared breath that marks the end of the ritual and the beginning of something else entirely. The air, once thick with tension, now carries the scent of earth and the quiet hum of a community returning to itself. Former combatants, their faces streaked with sweat and dirt, now lean on each other's shoulders. A hand that recently held a whip now offers a piece of bread. There are no victors or vanquished here, only participants in a shared, exhausting, and necessary act of release. The transformation is immediate and profound. This is where the true purpose of the tradition reveals itself, not in the clash, but in the mending that follows. It is an intricate system of social memory, where elders recount tales of past tinkuis, linking the day's events to a lineage of conflict and resolution that stretches back through generations. The fight is the text. The reconciliation is the lesson. Each story reinforces a core belief that grievances, if left unspoken, will fester and destroy. By bringing them into the open, through this highly structured and symbolic confrontation, they can be acknowledged and then cleansed. It is a form of public therapy, raw and visceral, but deeply effective. Yet this ancient practice now faces a challenge it cannot fight with fists. The modern world encroaches, not with weapons, but with laws, with new ideas of safety, and with the lure of lives lived far from these high plains. The pull of the city offers a different kind of future, one that has no place for ritual combat. A young man, his knuckles still scraped, scrolls through images on a smartphone, a window to a world that views his heritage as brutal or primitive. He is caught between the pull of his ancestors' spirits and the promise of a wage in a distant mine or a bustling urban center. This internal conflict is the new battleground. In response, the tradition begins to change, almost imperceptibly. The community negotiates with itself, softening the edges of their ritual to protect it from outside judgment and to keep their children engaged. The stones are perhaps a little smaller, the fights a little shorter, a quiet compromise to ensure survival. These adaptations are not seen as a weakening, but as a necessary evolution. It is a testament to the culture's pragmatism, an understanding that for a tradition to live, it must be able to breathe the air of the current moment. They are preserving the kernel of the ritual, its essential truth, even as the shell changes. And that truth is about resilience. It is the understanding that a community is not a fragile thing that must be protected from all conflict. It is a living organism, strengthened by its ability to withstand pressure, to break apart and come back together, stronger and more deeply connected than before. So the cycle continues, not just because of history, but because of a deeply felt human need. The need for release, for justice, and for the powerful, anchoring feeling of belonging to a people who understand that sometimes, to find peace, you must first be willing to fight for it.